My name is Amanda Dalcourt, and this is Emily and Jerry, and we're from Villanova University. And we used this competition to work on an application for a solar headlamp. I know that we started this competition as designing devices to work with the solar suitcase, and we kind of took a little bit of a different spin off of the solar suitcase, keeping the application, the same application in mind, and that application is the need for light for medical attendees in rural third world areas.
As Amanda briefly described, some of our motivations for designing something just for light in particular is a couple of these points. The cost of a solar suitcase as it stands right now is about $1,000, and the average income of a family in Nicaragua is about $6 a day. So we're thinking that, at least now as it stands, it might not be practical. And so we're trying to at least take one device away from the solar suitcase and make it something separate. So maternal mortality worldwide is 500,000 deaths per year. 99% of these are in third world countries, and attempting to bring affordable light to healthcare providers in the third world countries at a more reliable cost. So our project objective, like we said, was to bring affordable light to healthcare providers while fulfilling the following criteria. So we have a very robust and resilient design, and it would function effectively during nighttime operations, especially when we didn't have natural light. We wanted reduced donor commitment, so we wanted something more sustainable that would be available to the local community and did not depend on other people contributing, and contains an educational component for the actual people and engages and employs the local people.
So this is a typical headlamp. This is not a solar headlamp, but a typical device that you would just give to somebody in a pinch to say, oh my gosh, you don't have any light, let me give you something. This might be what it looks like. So if you notice, you've got a very manufactured plastic molded case, an elastic band, IC electronics, and this particular one takes 2 AA batteries, but most headlamps take 3 AAA batteries. So this is great for us because if we drop it, or if, let's say, the elastic band frays, we can replace it. Maybe we can go to REI or the sporting store and replace it very easily, but in a third world country, they wouldn't be able to replace any of these parts, and they also wouldn't be able to communicate very easily to somebody who gave it to them that it had broken. So we're thinking this is a black box solution, and as I said, the parts can't be replaced, and the recipients are very dependent on the donor for the device. And additionally, the community and the people receiving it are not really educated on this new technology that is being brought to them. So we were thinking, how can we improve on this model so it's more sustainable, so that in order to create an extremely robust design, you almost have to factor resilience into it.
So the traditional project parameters would be it's very robust and user obvious, and maybe costs about $30 US, and it's highly efficient. But it's outsourced manufacturing, it's already on the market, something maybe that looks a little bit like this, but like we were saying, it's kind of a black box solution that wouldn't really, if it ever broke or anything like that, it'd be hard to replace, and the users wouldn't know too much about it. So our envisioned project parameters would be, again, robust and resilient. So kind of changing the definition of reliable in terms of it's intuitive but also educational, and it costs lower, about $15 US, and highly efficient, but most importantly uses local materials and labor as much as possible. And here's a picture of our prototype.
So we've created these graphs to kind of represent our vision, and the size of the bubbles represents, it's not pictured on the graph, but represents the number of components that go into building a device, a solar headlamp. So traditionally you would get a headlamp, a solar headlamp could cost $100. It would be mildly robust, and it's made with a lot of parts. The optimized version, something that's already on the market today, might cost $30. It still uses a lot of parts, it's outsourced, and it's very robust. It's a 90% reliability. So our vision is to reduce the number of components, to reduce the price, but also keep it robust, keeping in mind that we factor resilience into the design. The other part of this, to graphically represent it, is the vision for replicability. So how easily could somebody take this design and make it their own and maybe start an entrepreneurial, start some sort of investment. So we've got user obvious is something that is kind of important, and when the Solar Suitcase, they talk about something being user obvious a lot, because bringing a device to a place where they're not familiar with electric devices, it not only needs to be intuitive, but it needs to be obvious. So we're kind of taking the approach that, yes, it needs to be intuitive, but we also need to be educating the people on how to use it. And if we educate them, they'll be able to replicate it easier. So our vision is to have a very, an educational component, but also have an intuitive component, and hopefully that will be an optimal mix for replicability.
Excuse me. So part of the design, we want it to be very robust, but we also want to use components that are available to the communities that we're using the system in. We reduced it down from many components to the bare essentials for a headlamp, which include 1 watt high brightness LED and 1 AAA rechargeable battery, and also incorporate solar to charge that system. So here's the circuitry that we used, just a PSpice simulation. Basically, we're using a ferrite toroid and an NPN transistor, a 1 kilo ohm resistor, and a 1 watt LED to be able to draw complete charge out of the battery, almost be able to use it at around 1.5 volts, but also lower than that, like 0.7 volts, and still be able to get enough lumens out for it to be useful. So that's a picture of our circuitry right there.
This is very, very small. We'll see another picture of it. So just a really quick overview of how it works. Basically, we're using a ferrite toroid as a blocking oscillator and an NPN transistor to boost the voltage from the 1.2 volt battery to the turn-on voltage of the LED, which is around 2.85 volts and up from there. So I don't think we have enough time to really go through all of this, but basically what's happening is we are using more current, we're using a greater capacity of the battery than it's normally used for. We are boosting the voltage to power the LED, and we're getting enough current out of the battery to output a significant amount of light. So we're talking 30 to 70 lumens. You'll see that in minutes.
So here are some graphs that we've calculated, and you'll see that there's a lower voltage input than our voltage output to power the LED, and that's part of the design to use 1 battery. And then also on the right, there's the lumens versus the input voltage. So even as the system runs out of battery charge, it still produces a significant amount of lumens for the application.
So just to give you a perspective, a typical headlamp that you would buy from EMS, their low setting is about 18 lumens, and their high settings might be around 40 lumens. So you might be thinking, how can this really be possible? The battery, if you use it all night, will run out in about 6 to 7 hours. So this is based on the fact that we're assuming there's not going to be a medical emergency every night, but if there is, theoretically, you could use it each night and recharge it every day, provided there's at least 1 hour of sunlight during the day. We have tested this in the lab, but we haven't done field testing yet. So I think that's going to be a critical part of developing this device, to see day after day, if we use this every night, how does it perform? For the solar charging of the circuit, we just brought it down to a very, very basic level to reduce the cost and to enable local partnerships. So we simply have a solar panel, a blocking diode, and the battery that we want to charge. So for example, in Nicaragua, there is a group called Grupo Phoenix, and they have workshops that they take broken solar panels and then they put them together for something useful. So this is a kind of organization that we might partner with to put these solar chargers together. We only have like 30 seconds. So theoretically, the mechanical design would be very flexible and very versatile, and it would change by location. So for us, Jerry really likes Tic Tacs, and he had a lot of Tic Tac boxes lying around, so he used his Tic Tac boxes to be a housing for the battery. It's extremely low cost, and it's familiar. I won't totally get into this. So to house the, you saw the orange electrical circuit, that's very robust, it's watertight. We put that inside a soda cap bottle to shape the light coming out of the LED. We used a piece of soda can, and we cut that out and wrapped it around the LED. Put the battery in the Tic Tac box, and we have a nuts and bolts switch. Any kind of other switch might fail after time. So our plan for implementation is to send down a fully functioning device with materials that we have, send down a second set of electrical components, and encourage them and educate them to build their own solar headlamp with materials that are local to their community. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions?